Jill. That was a great time with the children and choir. That sounded fantastic. I want you to imagine that you get invited to a dinner party, and because it was a close friend that invited you, they said, I'm going to give you a sneak peek at the guest list. And you start looking at the guest list, and some of the names are Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, Beethoven, Edgar Allan Poe, Mark Twain, Winston Churchill, Vincent van Gogh, and a host of other famous names. And when you read those names, you think, I am not missing this night. And so you quickly fill out your RSVP and send it in. The night comes, you walk in, and you walk right past Beethoven. And he's at a table of other musicians, and they're talking about musical composition. Then you walk past another table, and there's Edgar Allan Poe and Mark Twain, and they're talking about literature. You go past another table. There's Vincent van Gogh, and he's talking to people at his table about all of his painting techniques. Then you go past Roosevelt and Lincoln, and they're talking about politics. And you wonder, why are all these people here? Because you know when you were invited, your friend said, all the money that comes in is going to be a fundraiser to help people who are suffering from depression. And these people couldn't have ever been depressed because they're so famous and intelligent and wonderful. And you think, I bet somebody in their family was depressed. And so dinner's over, coffee gets served, and it's time for the special guests to come up and give their speeches. And one after another, it's one famous person, followed by another famous person, followed by another famous person, discussing their battle with depression. And then Abraham Lincoln comes up, and he was the most moving. He said, I'm going to read to you a letter that I wrote to a friend of mine when I was in my deepest depression. And this was a letter written by Abraham Lincoln to a friend of his. He said, I am now the most miserable man living. If what I felt were equally distributed to the whole human family, there would not be one cheerful face on earth. Whether I shall ever be better, I cannot tell. But to remain as I am is impossible. I must die or be better, it appears to me. All eyes are riveted on him, and they're saying, he felt that way? He was an attorney, and a politician, and a president, and saw our nation through a horrible war, and he was that low? And then he tells everybody, don't give up. Persevere, because in a future letter, I was able to write this. This year that's drawing to a close has been filled with the blessings of fruitful fields and healthful skies. These bounties are so constantly enjoyed, we're prone to forget the source from which they come. Life is going to get better, he tells you. So these are just famous people, and we oftentimes hear about the life of famous people because it's lived in front of everybody. But we're just normal people. Famous people can get depressed. Normal people can get depressed. Teenagers get depressed. I read this. More than 2 million U.S. teens have suffered a serious bout of depression in the past year. On average, about 8.5% of youth ages 12 to 17 will admit to having a major depressive episode in the previous year. And depression is a leading cause of suicide, and suicide is like the second leading cause of death in youth that are ages 15 to 24. Depression is serious. It is serious. It's people will take their lives over it. Now, the Bible has a lot to say about depression. It just doesn't use a whole bunch of our modern, clinical, psychological terms. It's an everyday book for everyday people, and it uses everyday words. So if you were to say, what does it feel like to be depressed? Here's what the Bible would say. Proverbs 15:15. It says, for the despondent, that's another way of saying downhearted, unhappy, depressed. For the despondent, every day brings trouble. For the happy heart, life is a continual feast. If you are despondent, again, you are unhappy, you are depressed, and it says in this verse, every day brings trouble. Every day is anxiety. Every day is pain. Every day you feel bad. When you are depressed, it will ruin every single day. From the moment you wake up, you might say, I don't want to get out of bed, because if I do, I have to face another day of trouble. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to see anyone. And I don't want to do anything. I wish my heart was the second half of the verse. A happy heart is like a continual feast. Think of Thanksgiving, right? A whole table of all the foods you love, and people are laughing, and they're watching football, and it's a big party, and you say, I wish it was a day like that. But I feel like every day brings trouble. I'm not feasting, I'm starving. I'm not healthy, I feel like I have the flu. I feel bad all over. Every day brings trouble. Proverbs 18:14. The human spirit can endure sickness, but a crushed spirit, who can bear? When you are depressed, it feels like your spirit, not your body. Your body is healthy. Maybe your blood pressure's fine, and your pulse is fine, your temperature's fine, but it's your spirit, that living part of us on the inside. It feels like it's been crushed. It feels like it's been stepped on. When you are filled with anxiety and depression, you literally feel sick. Again, even though you don't have a fever, even though you're not on antibiotics, when you're depressed, you inside feel sick, like your spirit has been crushed, like you've been through a train wreck. Proverbs 25. Anxiety weighs down the heart. When you're filled with anxiety, you're filled with worry. You're filled with concern. You're depressed. And it says it weighs you down. Weighs you down with fear. Weighs you down with sadness. Weighs you down with gloominess. You try to get up. You say, tomorrow's going to be better. But when you wake up, it's not better. And that same ugly weight is sitting on you. Not physically, but it's just on the inside. It's weighing down your spirit. And it's one thing for somebody to say, why don't you just get up and do something? But they don't understand, inside is a weight. Anxiety is a weight that holds you down. Now this is interesting. Something Jesus himself said in Mark chapter 14. You think, well, maybe Jesus was happy every day. Listen to this. If you think every day for Jesus was a party, Mark 14:32. They went to the place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples. So picture this. Jesus talking to his disciples. Sit here while I pray. And then he takes Peter and James and John along with him, and he began to be, listen to the words, deeply distressed and troubled. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Isn't it interesting that Jesus himself would say to his three best friends, my soul inside is overwhelmed with sorrow. I feel like I'm going to die. You know, you can get depressed, you can get filled with anxiety, you can get so down that you will say, I wish I was dead. Because if I was dead, I wouldn't feel what I'm feeling right now. And there are some people that do go to the next level, and they actually take their life. They think that I would rather be dead than feel this. Jesus felt overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. And he vocalized it. He was okay with looking at his three best friends and saying, you have no idea what's going on inside of me, so I'm going to tell you, sorrow has consumed me so much. I feel like I am right next to the grave, like I'm going to die. And he shares that with them. Now, what makes our heart sad? What made Jesus' heart so incredibly sorrowful that he said, I'm at the point of death? Well, remember, this is the night just before he's going to get arrested and be taken to the cross. So he is going to face pain. He is going to face death. He's going to face separation from the Father. He's going to face carrying the sin of the world. So if you just kind of transpose that onto our life, he's going to face death. When you face death, your own impending death or somebody else's, it can fill you with sorrow. It can bring you down. It can weigh you down. He's going to be separated from the Father. There's sometimes you're separated from a loved one. It brings you down. It weighs heavy on you. He's going to face dealing with the most difficult time in his life when you're going through difficulties, hard things, and you just can't escape them. Like when he said, Father, not my will, but your will be done. I can't escape this hard time. You may feel despondent, depressed, weighed down. Think about Job. We all know the story of Job. You know, Job felt so bad, he said, I wish I was a stillborn child. Right? That when my bones and my body was developed in the womb, that when I came out, I never had to breathe the air here or see the light, that they would just take me from the womb to the grave. That's Job chapter 3, verse 16. Here's what Job said. Why was I not hidden like a stillborn child, like infants who never saw light? Well, what did Job face? His children died. Right? Again, there's death. Death can bring you so low. You say, I wish I never had to face this life. I feel so bad. Job was sick, right? He was sick with boils. He was a miserable individual with the sickness that came upon him. Sickness can make you feel depressed and low and down. His wife was saying, why don't you curse God and die? So you can have separation from loved one or divorce, and those things bring people down. So it can be, and he lost his wealth. He lost his income. There are people that face times of great debt or loss of a job, and they feel so low, like a failure. There's no light at the end of the tunnel, and it brings them down. So Jesus felt it. Job felt it. You may feel it. And somebody may say, why are you so low? And maybe you can't even put a finger on it, and you say, I don't know, I just feel so bad today. That's okay. Because sometimes you can't put your finger on it. It's just there. It's just inside, and you can't talk about it, and you can't pinpoint it. You just don't know. Sometimes, and especially as Christians, you're going to be under spiritual attack. You're going to want to do right, and you're going to feel miserable, and Satan is going to be attacking your heart, and you are going to feel absolutely awful. I think of this verse, John chapter 10 and verse 10. The thief is Satan. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. Jesus says, I've come that you might have life and have it to the full. But the thief comes to steal and kill and destroy, and Satan will do everything he can in your life to kill and steal and destroy whatever makes you have an abundant life or a happy life. So, when you are under spiritual attack, be warned, you're going to feel miserable. You're going to say, I thought the life of faith was going to be happier than this. Hang in there. It's a tough journey. Do you think Satan, or you think Jesus was under spiritual attack the night before he was arrested? Sure he was, and he was miserable, and he was low, and he thought about death, and he thought about the pain. He thought about separation from the Father, all that. He was so incredibly low, and all that can bring our hearts down. Then I thought about this question. How come some people get depressed and others don't? Now sometimes we feel horrible and we just fake it. Because somebody says, how are you? And we feel absolutely horrible. And what do? We smile and we say, I'm wonderful. How are you doing? And they may feel the same way. And they say they're wonderful. But there are some people who just never often, they just don't really seem to get down and to feel that weight in their heart. And there's others who feel it regularly. Again, there's some who go through a divorce. One gets depressed, and the other says, there's more fish in the sea. I'm moving on with life. I'm not going to let it stop me. There's some who go through death in their family, and it brings depression, and it brings them down for weeks. Somebody else comes through and says, it's going to be okay. It's just part of life, and you're mad at them because they're getting through it so easy, and you're struggling with it. Why are they filled with sunshine when I'm feeling terrible? One person loses a job, and they're depressed, and they feel like a failure. And somebody else says, I'll spruce up the resume. I got one job, I'll get another one. Why is it that people take life so differently? I don't have all the answers, but a couple of I think the simplest answers are this. One key word is our nature. we are wired differently, right? We look at things in life very differently. The way God has molded our personalities and shaped us and wired us is very different. So one person seems to be more prone to sadness, and another one seems to be prone to just shake it off and move on, right? God didn't make cookie-cutter people. He didn't just stamp us out, and we're all alike. And so we go through life like a bunch of little robots, and we accept everything the same way. He made us very different. And that's why some people are a bundle of nerves. I mean, life is just fine, but there's still a nervous wreck constantly. And you wonder, why are they always so nervous? Why is everything such a bother? And that's if you are the kind of person who, I just don't sweat it. And so, by nature, our personality affects how life is going to challenge us. Which kind of moves right into that word nurture. Nature is just how we're wired. Nurture is how we were brought up. If you were brought up in a home where things were just taken easily, and just kind of move right on through, and you just kind of learn that big challenges are not a big deal. You're going to be challenged, but you're going to succeed. You're going to come out the other side. You might have grown up filled with courage and say, as I get challenged, that's going to be okay. Big things will come into my life and I'll move through them. If you grew up and you learned that every little thing was a big deal, then maybe you're going to kind of go through life the same way. Every little thing that comes into your life is a huge deal to you. You don't know how to handle it. One person laughs off failure. They say, oh man, that didn't go well. Another person gets depressed and they feel like it's the end of the world. They're devastated. So, how did you grow up? Generally happy, where your family just got through tough times easy? Or did you grow up insecure, and then you kind of just learn, this is how you deal with the problems in life. You worry like crazy. You make them bigger than they are. And so some of it is how we're wired. Some of it is kind of how it's been molded, the way that we should go through life. Now, the biggest question, though, is what in the world do you do? If you find yourself getting into the funk, and it's like it's not just one bad day, it's turned into a bad week, or 2 bad weeks, and it's just, I'm not coming out of it, I don't know what to do. Got a list of statements here for you. They just come from God's Word, so you can just take this as God saying, are you low? Is your heart unhappy? I got some words that'll help you. And here's the first one. Proverbs 12:25. What do you do when your heart is unhappy? One thing you can do is simple, and that's listen to some encouraging words. Proverbs 12:25, it says that anxiety in the heart of a man causes depression. Right? But a good word makes it glad. You say, oh, that's just too simple. It might be too simple, but it's true. If you have anxiety, nerves, worry, depression, it's going to bring you down, but a good word can make it glad. A good word can be a pick-me-up. It can be somebody else, a good friend, coming alongside and saying, hey, let me share something with you. And they might speak some words to you that when you're done hearing them, you walk away and say, man, I needed that. That was just what I needed to hear. But that good friend might not come along. You might have to talk to yourself. You might have to be the one that says to yourself, I made it through tough times before. I'm going to make it through again. Remind yourself, I've faced difficulties before. It got bad, but God saw me through. The light came back out. So let yourself know. Remind yourself that things are going to get better. Remind yourself that I know God's in control, and I know He's going to see me through, but that doesn't mean that I just park it and wait for an answer. Faith is active. Get up. Make some steps forward, and in a way that's going to be towards a solution. Remind yourself when every door seems to close, no matter which direction you try, and it seems to be a locked door, remind yourself, you know what? God is going to open a door. I got to hang in there. Keep trusting. So, just remind yourself that there is going to be an open door. And again, just keep pouring some good words into your spirit. Try to just get your hope up. Look at things a little bit brighter, a little bit better. Again, it might be somebody else who gives you a good word, It might have to be yourself, but a good word, it says, can make the heart glad. So if you are depressed, listen to a good word. Number 2, do something that makes you happy. Don't just listen to something that helps pick your heart up. Think about some things that you really enjoy doing and just go out and do them. Because Proverbs 17:22 says this, a merry heart does good like medicine. A broken spirit dries the bones. So if your spirit is broken and it feels like your bones have no life in them, you just feel heavy. You feel mentally heavy. You feel physically heavy. You feel like doing absolutely nothing. A merry heart is good like medicine. Ask yourself, what are some things that I usually do that I just enjoy when I do it? Then just go and do it. Don't just sit there and say, I should do this. Don't just sit there and say, I wish I had something to do that'd make me feel better. There is something that you like. It could be going out with your grandchildren. You said, I don't feel like seeing them. It's okay. If it makes you happy to see them, call them up. Take them out for ice cream. Do something with them. It could be shopping. You like to shop? You feel bad? Go out and go shopping. Look for a bargain. Maybe you're handy with tools. And you think, whenever I get into a project, I get my mind off of things. Go find a project. Go make a project. Just get off of sitting there and feeling miserable and do something that usually picks your heart up. Go to a movie. Go running. Go do something. Read a book. Do whatever it is that helps your heart usually to find some joy. Say, you know what? I need some medicine. Not what the pharmacist gives. I just need those things that go into my life that usually make me happy. And even if you don't feel like it, do it anyway. Let it be a pick-me-up. Third thing is this. Take control of your thinking. When you're down and you're looking at your problems, usually you just keep looking at them. And then they get bigger. And they're bigger today than yesterday. And as you keep staring at them and worrying about them, they're probably going to be even bigger tomorrow. So take control of your thinking. Philippians 4:8 says this. Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's anything excellent, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Isn't that interesting? Think about whatever is true. Usually when we are talking to ourselves about our problems, we don't tell ourselves the truth. We don't say, I've been through this before, I'll get through this again. We don't say it's not as bad as I think it is. We don't tell ourselves the truth. Instead we say, this is horrible. This is the worst day in the world. I've never had anything like this. It's going to get bigger. It's going to get worse. And rather than tell ourselves the truth, we just keep building up the problem and making it bigger than it really is. If we're going to tell ourselves the truth, we probably should say, yeah, today's pretty bad, but it's going to get better. It's going to work out. It's not as bad as I think it is. Life is not over. You ever feel sometimes, hey, this is the worst thing ever. It's like life is over. And it's not. You're going to make it through the day. So tell yourself things that are true, honorable, just, pure, lovely, commendable, and excellent. It said that one time an old man was asked what robbed him of joy most in his life. And he said, things that never happened. Have you ever worried about something that never happened? You think it might happen, and so you keep thinking about it. What if this happens? What if this turns into this? Oh no, this is going to happen. And we worry about things that aren't even real. So take control of your thinking. Tell yourself things that are true. Fourth one, pray. Pray. Go for a walk. Right? Just go for a walk and say, God, I got a million things to tell you, and none of them are good. I'm really feeling awful today, and I'm just going to lay it on you. And just start talking to God. Share with Him. Philippians 4:6 and 7 say this. Don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends or goes beyond all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Don't be anxious, pray. Don't be anxious, petition. That's to ask for something. Do what it says with thanksgiving. So go for a walk and say, God, can you do me a favor? I'm low. I'm low today. I was low yesterday, and I was low the day before, and I got to get out of feeling this way. I got to have you help me. I'm just feeling miserable. So first thing I'm going to do, Lord, is begin to thank you. It says to do it with thanksgiving. Thank God for all the good things that you have. Be surprised how long the list is. Petition. Ask for some help. Say, God, you not like get me through this, but help me get through it without feeling so miserable. Give me the confidence that you're going to get me to the end of this and get me through it. So just talk to God about it. Number 5 is while you're talking to God about it, give that anxiety to Him. 1 Peter 5:7. It says to cast your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. Now, you wish you could physically just take it and wrap it all up and cast it on the Lord, but you can't do it physically because it's in the heart. It's in our spirit, right? It's that weight that is weighing down our heart and weighing down our spirit. And you say, well, how in the world do I take something that's inside my spirit and cast it on the Lord? And it has to be done by faith. Since it can't be done physically, it has to be done by faith and say, God, the very best that I can. And I don't even know how to do it, but Lord, the very best that I can, by faith, I'm going to trust you with this. I'm going to give this problem over to you. I'm going to trust that you're going to see me through this. So I know your shoulders are broader, and you can handle it. So by faith, give your anxiety and your cares to God, which leads us to number 6, and that is handling life one day at a time. I'm turning to Matthew 6. Matthew chapter 6 and verse 25. And this is Jesus talking to everyday people. He went up, sat down on a mountain. People came up there and he began to talk to them, the Sermon on the Mount. And he just talks to everyday people about everyday things. And he says, I'm going to tell you something. Verse 25, don't worry about your life, what you're going to eat, what you're going to drink, or your body, what you're going to wear. It's another way of saying how you're going to pay the bills, how you're going to take care of the issues of life, the simple physical issues of life and paying the bills. Don't worry about it. Because is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? You might have to pause and say, you know what? It really is. But I'm so wrapped up in the physical things, I forget that life is more than just the physical things. But he tells us in verse 26, I want you to look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or stow away in barns, and your heavenly Father feeds them. And you say, you're right. That bird doesn't do anything but just fly around and picks up food and bugs, and the Father's taking care of him. He really meets the needs of the birds. Aren't you much more valuable than they? And the answer is, yes, you are. Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? No. If we could, we probably would live to be well over 100. Because every time we worry, just think of that added in one more hour. Verse 28. Why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They don't labor and spin. And yet I tell you that even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field that's here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Yeah, if God takes care of a flower and a bird, he's going to take care of his children. Verse 31. Do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? It says, for the pagans run after these things, and your Father in heaven knows you need them. You seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things are going to be given to you as well. And therefore don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Take one day at a time. Say, okay, God, I just got to get through today. Help me to get through today better than I did yesterday. Help me not to worry so much about today. You take care of birds and you take care of flowers. I know you're going to take care of me. And so, Lord, help me just to handle today. So, I wish there was an immediate quick fix for the times when you're depressed and discouraged and the dark clouds come in and the weight is there. It'd be nice if you could just pop the pill, as they say, and for a sad heart. But it's a spiritual issue when it's going on inside. And we got some principles that can help us. Right? We got some principles. Listen to encouraging words. Let it lift your heart up. Do those things that make you happy. Take control of your thoughts. Pray. Give God your anxiety. Take one day at a time. You do those, and it will help us to move out of the anxious times and into having a happier heart. And I want to say this. Maybe today you walked in and somebody said, "How are you doing?" And you said, "I'm doing great." And really inside you were doing the exact opposite of great. You walked in and your heart was heavy. And you were worried. You were worried about your children. You're worried about your grandchildren. You're worried about your health or somebody else's health. And you came in and you said you were fine, but you weren't. Before you leave, just even as we sing the last song, right where you're at, or come up here if you like, and give it to God. Cast your anxiety on Him. Ask God to help you to deal with today, and that He would lighten the load on your heart. So we trust that today, if you're heavy, your heart is heavy, that you're going to give it to God and feel better as you leave than when you came in. We're going to end today by singing 416. 416, My Faith Looks Up to Thee. If you have a need, you need to trust Christ as Savior. You need to